Watch ye, stand fast in the faith, quit you like men, be strong. It's in 1 Corinthians 16, verse 13. Young Christian man, welcome back to Seeking Wisdom, the podcast to help Christian young men see life from God's perspective. Today, I want to ask you a question. It's a very simple question, and hopefully you already know the answer to this, but are you a man? All right, now that can be taken a lot of different ways. We might mean it as are you a man versus a woman? Or are you a man versus just a boy? Are you a man in the truest and noblest sense? There's a lot of ways that we could understand that question. So today, to help us break apart that question and try to understand it for ourselves and be able to answer it, I've brought on one of the manliest guys I know, and also my big brother. This is Charlie Schaefer, and I call him Bubby. So, Bubby, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Could you just kind of introduce yourself for us? Tell us a little bit about you. What do you do? What kind of stuff do you like? And all right, my one weird question. Wrong answers only. What is the most backwards thing in our society? Wrong answers only. Okay, but start with the other stuff.
Oh, so, okay. So I'm Charlie Schaefer, and I'm the pastor of Capernaum Baptist Church. I also work at Open Door Christian Academy as the assistant principal. And on the side, I also train Christian men to help get them in shape and not be fat, but now to be awesome soldiers in the faith. So anyway, that's kind of what I like to do. Most of my spare time is spent hanging out with my wife and daughter and soon-to-be son Silas. And then also I like to work out. So that's my hobby. I work out and I think about business, and that's about it.
He works about 36 hours a day.
Yeah, every day. Without fail. I haven't missed since I was 12. So, what's something backwards in society, wrong answers only?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you a right answer first. Is this government weaponized pollen from this spring? That's this stuff I'm pretty sure is illegal. This came out of a lab from China. This is not normal pollen. Wrong answers only. So what's something that's right in society? Okay. Saltwater fish versus freshwater fish. You just salt's keeping you alive down there. What's going on? I think that's my answer.
That's a fair one. Yeah, what's the difference? Why do they care?
I don't know. Very preferential fish. Die on that hill.
Literally. All right, let's get into the actual topic for today. Let's talk about manliness. What is the difference? Well, we want to get to the point of what is a man. But like we already said, there's a couple ways we can take that. So first, what's the difference between a man and a woman?
Okay. A man, I actually made a list. So I've been reading a book. It's called Point Man, and it's been excellent. I haven't finished it yet, so I'm not going to give it a 100% 10 pass. I don't know, but so far it's been one of the best books I've ever read in my life. And as I was reading the other day, I realized a lot of the terms that we're using as man versus woman, we need to define terms. And I think if we look at man, I think the term that comes to mind for me is strength. Mm-hmm. And the term that comes to mind for a woman is grace. And so if you're a strong man, then that's going to be in different kinds of, in different areas of life. So I think you're going to have mental strength, you're going to have physical strength, and you're going to have spiritual strength. I also think a lot of people would add emotional strength, but I think that's more of a byproduct of your mental. If I'm strong mentally, then I'm going to be calculated. I'm going to be wise. If I'm gracious mentally, I can still be calculated and wise, but my presentation of that's going to look different. A strong physical appearance is going to manifest differently. You're going to see a different response than a gracious physical appearance. And a strong spiritual person is going to be different than a gracious spiritual person. And it's not to say that either one is necessarily right or wrong. Here's the thing, is they're on a spectrum. And I know our next question maybe jumping ahead, is about boy versus man.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been thinking through this all week long about that specific dynamic. So, and on one side we have woman, and on the other side we have man. And I think the terms that we can use today are feminine versus masculine.
Yeah.
And then on the top you have mature, and that's going to be a man. And on the bottom you have immature, and that's going to be a boy. And so the goal is to be in this quadrant up here, however that works. And that's going to be, I'm going to be a mature, masculine person.
Yeah.
Mature and masculine is the goal as a man. And then for a woman, it's going to be mature and feminine. But the less mature I am, that's what distinguishes a man from a boy. And maturity is just having a goal and going after that goal. Having a purpose and going after that purpose. So like Paul, even better example, Jesus, whenever it was his time to go to Jerusalem, the Bible says he set his face like a flint, like he was like a stone, like he was, I'm going to Jerusalem, nothing's going to get in the way of that. And that was a mature decision because he had a purpose, he had a destination, he had a place to be, and he went there. Now, an immature person would say, I have a place to be, but I'm going to take this detour first. That's immaturity. It's having a goal, having a purpose, and still not doing the things associated with that goal and purpose. That's why you find mature people can budget and immature people can't. Mm-hmm. That's why you see mature people go and work to make money. Immature people go to the gas station and buy a lottery ticket because they know what they should be doing, but it's easier to do something else. Mature person sees that there's a mound of laundry and says, I'm going to do the work. An immature person sees that there's a mound of laundry and says, I'm going to watch Netflix. There's two kinds of people in this world. There's more mature and there's less mature, and they exist on a spectrum, the same as masculine and feminine. And here's why man versus woman is not the great term here. Masculine and feminine is because you can still be a man who's a girly man. You can still be a man and not, you could be age-wise a man, maturity-wise be a boy. And so you could exist in this bottom left quadrant and be an immature, feminine man. And you probably also have blue hair and you drink Starbucks and
Yeah.
So like,
hypocrite.
Yeah, that's where we don't want to be.
Gotcha.
And so that's kind of the definitions between a man versus a woman and then a man versus a child or a boy. And I think once we figure that out, we can kind of plot where you are somewhere on that graph, and you can say, well, today I'm not acting masculine. I'm being a little bit more, and let's define those terms. I actually wrote that down too. That would be helpful. Yeah. So masculine versus feminine. So masculine is going to exude strength. Feminine is going to exude grace. A masculine man is going to be self-confident. And by that, I mean contrast it with group affirmation. So men will go out of their way not to pee next to the man in the same stall.
It's the code.
But women will on purpose get all of their girlfriends together to go to the bathroom together.
Yeah.
Which is weird. But women exist. The more feminine you are, the more group mindset you are. The more masculine you are, the more you can go stand on a mountain alone and overlook thousands of acres and be okay with that.
Be happy with it.
You're just on your own. Yeah. And that's not saying that there's not outgoing and personable men. There are, but they're self-confident in that. They're not, it doesn't mean that they're haughty. It doesn't mean that they're cocky. It just means that they don't need someone else to make them feel validated. Mm-hmm. That's what a masculine man is. Masculinity calls for aggressiveness. Femininity calls for passive aggressiveness. And that's not necessarily in a bad way. It's so like Jesus flipped tables was rather aggressive.
Yeah.
But he was very sure. He made a calculated decision.
Right.
In fact, he did it
just rash.
Exactly.
Anger.
And he didn't just preach sermons using his words to make the same point. He didn't go around and try to influence the people in that building and say, hey, you see they're undercutting your prices over there. Why don't you kind of go talk to them? And then eventually they all get into a war and then they both cut each other. That's not what happened. Mm-hmm. He was very assertive. Very dominant is the next word here, and the female version is submissive. Now, again, you could be a man, but be a submissive man, and not in a good way. I think there's submission to authority, sure,
Right.
but there's a submissive to everybody. So, like, when the waitress comes and she, gave you a slightly undercooked steak, if you need your wife to tell the waiter, you're not on the masculine side right now. Okay, if you can't even say something that you're paying for, you're not a manly man. Like, that's wimp territory, okay? And it's not that can't be corrected. It's not a trait that has to be who you are for the rest of your days. It just means that in this moment you're not acting masculine. I don't think, first off, you're self-confident enough to know, like in the steak example, like, okay, if I die, I die. Like, but I am gonna die someday, and I know that what my purpose is more important than wasting the extra 15 minutes it's going to take for them to make another steak,
Right.
That kind of thing. And so for me, if my dinner is about being with my family, that's my purpose. That's a maturity question. Am I there for the purpose, or am I there for the other detours? And then there's the other side where it's, am I going to be more submissive and just really kind of take whatever I get? Or am I going to be assertive, and if I want something, I can get it? Am I going to be more dominant in that conversation? And so the more feminine you are, the less assertion you will have. The Bible word for this is Ahab. Ahab was feminine. He was a girly man. He wanted to abdicate. He wanted to let Jezebel take the lead. When he didn't get what he wanted, he threw a fit like a petulant child, and he just let whatever happened in life happen because Jezebel was the one in control, not him. He was passive. He was feminine. Even though he was a man, even though he had the highest title in all of the land.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what your job is. It doesn't matter what your role is. It doesn't matter your chromosomes. It matters how you act. The more mature you are, the more goal-oriented, the more purpose-driven you're going to be. And the more masculine you are, the more assertive, dominant, strong you're going to be. And the last one is leader versus follower. If you're, and obviously this is not an exhaustive list, and this is somewhat stereotypical, but I think the more masculine you are, the more you're willing to lead.
Yeah.
Even quiet strength is still leadership.
Right.
I don't think, like Joshua to me didn't seem like the guy who was, just looking to be the leader of Israel, and yet God said, here you go. Even Moses, he couldn't even talk right, and yet he was the leader of Israel for how many years? And so, like, that is leadership. But a follower, his father-in-law came in and he was like, for real, Moses? Like, you're just going to let everybody come in and take up your time? You're going to let them control you? You're going to be passive? You're going to be feminine is another word that we can use here, because he's not the one in control. The people were. And he took control of that, and that was a masculine decision that he made. And so the more manly you are, the more in control you're going to be. Doesn't mean, here's the problem, doesn't mean that you're controlling.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask
It
next.
means you're in control. And so I don't have to be in control of you. I can be in control of me.
So it's more self-control.
Yes.
Which will often bleed into control of things around you.
It may.
But only when it's right to do so.
Right. So exactly. So if you're not the pastor of the church, don't try to make pastoral decisions.
Right.
Because you're submissive. And that means that you're in self-control, which means that you're more masculine, not less. People take that, and I think, guys, humility is a really hard thing for men, but it's because they're feminine in it. It's not because they're masculine. A masculine man can stand on his own 2 feet and say, yeah, he's better than I am at that. Yes, he's the one in control, and I'm not. I'm not in charge. So when he says to jump, I say, how high? Yes, sir. That's it. Mm-hmm. But I'm in control of me, not them. Right. And so that more masculine person can submit even though he's the one acting more in control. So, like, think it in the military, like a sergeant who's been on the battlefield for 20 years. He's done everything.
Yeah.
Versus the first lieutenant who just graduated school.
Yeah.
Like, who's more valuable? clearly the sergeant. He knows what he's doing. He's got so much more wisdom and so much more control over the situation, and honestly, more influence and leadership. But that's not what makes him better or higher ranking. It just means that that's what he is. If he throws a fit every time the lieutenant makes a call, he's not acting like a leader. He's acting like a child. He's acting like he's not in control, although he's trying to grasp for control. And the word that we would call that is Jezebel in the Bible. She wants control. She's trying to take control. She weasels her way into control, but she is not the one who owns control. The lieutenant does. But let's suppose he's a mature and he is a masculine man. He can say, okay, I'm not the one in charge here, but he can still be in control of himself. And I think that's the difference between mature, immature, or man, boy, man, woman, or masculine, feminine.
Yeah. With the sergeants, I've just read about a lot of that. And a lot of guys will say the best sergeants they had as when they were lieutenants, the best sergeants they had working with them were the ones who would take their orders and turn around and issue it as if it was coming directly from them, even if they disagreed with it. Because the sergeant was submitting to the lieutenant's leadership, even though, frankly, the sergeant knew better.
Yeah.
But because of that authority structure, the sergeant was mature enough, like you're saying, to be able to control himself and use his influence for the better purpose over just, whatever he wanted at the moment.
Here's where this graph breaks down. Because if you're more mature, and that means that you have purpose and you go after that purpose, that could be any purpose. And for a lot of men, that's going to be their net worth. It's going to be their bench press. It's going to be their child's success on the team. And they would claim that they're mature because they go after that goal with steadfastness and faithfulness. But who cares, because that dies with you. And that's where we need to turn this graph from just a 2D graph into a 3D graph, and we're going to add the Z-plane to it.
Yeah.
And this is going to be the spiritual maturity. And spiritual maturity just is defined as how often and how much you live in the Spirit. If you're a spiritually mature person, then you exhibit the fruit of the Spirit because He's maturing you. That's the whole point. You're more like God. And so I'm assuming that our listeners are Christians, so let's assume that you're saved. If not, you're just on the 3D plane and you're stuck there, and everything that you do will die with you. So don't be on the 3D plane, be saved. If you are a Christian, then there's more and less spiritually mature too. And what happens is that, unfortunately, math hasn't done this yet, but it angles up towards our top right quadrant where we want to be. We're more masculine, more mature, but what we are seeking is spiritual. And so that draws it out, and it creates an actual goal. The goal is not my net worth. It's not my accomplishments. It's not whatever else I can find that equals my goal. And it's not how much I can be in control of myself, but actually how much I can control myself to put God in control. And when that happens, then you hit peak masculinity and you're the manliest of them all. You're like Samson's trainer. So, but that's the goal. It's not just to be manly. And okay, so rated R conversation for just a second.
Okay.
A lot of young men right now, and probably some, if not many of your listeners, are going to go experience the self-improvement world. They're going to go on YouTube, they're going to go on Instagram or whatever, TikTok if they have it, and they're going to go learn about what it means to self-improve. And there's a lot of admirable, noble traits there. I think some of the core tenets are learn more stuff. A lot of people are build a business. A lot of people are get in shape. Here's the problem. No matter how much business you build, no matter how much knowledge you attain, and no matter how beautiful your physique is, it's dying with you. And if the only thing you're seeking is self-improvement masculinity, then you are not seeking a godly kind of masculinity. They're going to measure this on your nofap streak. They're going to measure this on how many days it's been without porn. They're going to measure this on how many thousands of dollars are in your bank account. How much is your monthly revenue? They're going to measure this on how many girls you can pick up in the mall in one day. They're going to measure this on how many phone numbers you can collect. This is not masculinity. This is a counterfeit. And if that's where you start, if that's what the listener, if that's what your influence is right now, there's stuff to be learned from those people. But what masculinity is not that. It's what does God say about you? It's what is his purpose for your life. What I know is that the Bible says the purpose is to lead yourself, lead your wife, lead your kids.
Yeah.
And the point of those three is so that here's why. When I get saved, I don't just go to heaven. Mm-hmm. I stay on earth. And the reason is because God wants me to create other Christians. And even the most evangelistic groups of Christians in the world, I think it takes 4 of them to make 1 new convert, basically. So that's the ratio, 4 to 1. Mm-hmm. But how many kids can you have? And how many of those can you point in the direction of Christ and lead them to get saved? Yeah. Lead them to be faithful. So God's purpose of even men is to be faithful yourself, be a man, be a strong soldier, like Paul would tell Timothy, than to get married to a godly, submissive, beautiful, loving wife. And then you two come together and have children. And from there, disciple those kids together to love God and to get saved and to lead other people. And what you're doing is you're training them up all through childhood to become young men and young women who will go find spouses and go have more kids and go build the kingdom. That's the multiplication.
Yeah. Multiply through your family.
Yes. And I'm not saying that that's, at the expense of evangelism.
Right.
But it is in addition to, and it's not really addition that we're talking about, it's multiplication. 2 people can have a lot of kids. Mm-hmm. But it takes those 2 people years and years and years to create 1 convert, most of the time, statistically speaking. So what is the purpose? I think the purpose is to honor God in your family and in your own life. And when he gives you a goal, go after that goal. When he gives you a desire of your heart, that's what the Bible says, is that he will give you the desires. So when he gives you those desires, go after them. And as a mature man, go after them with everything you got. And as a masculine man, be in control of your own actions so that you don't get tossed to and fro, so that somebody else can't come and influence those goals that he's given you. Like Moses, you don't waste time leading Israel by trying to settle who's problem, like the little problems. I had like 100 different things. They're all dumb. Well, exactly. Who killed the goldfish? Yeah, exactly. They're all dead. They're all dumb. And that's the thing, is the dumb things don't matter. Like Netflix doesn't matter. Your YouTube subscriptions don't actually matter. But what does matter is studying the word. I told a young man a couple of times at school, if you spent half as much time in the Bible as you do on YouTube, then you would be unstoppable.
Yeah.
we need to be about the Father's business. And that doesn't happen when we're letting other people control us and we're not in control ourselves. And when we have goals, but we still choose to ignore them.
Okay, so then follow-up question to all of this. Is there any overlap? Like, for instance, you said that on the feminine side is grace, on the masculine side is strength, right? Should men also be gracious and women also be strong? Or is it like supposed to be a clean divide? And then with mature and immature, it's essentially focus versus distracted. And I guess there's probably not any overlap between those two, but is there any time that a mature man should be distractible?
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the strength and grace aspect first. There's this guy, and he was called the Sheriff of Baghdad. And he was a really scary dude. And the stories that he tells, he doesn't have PTSD. He's got nostalgia. Okay, he is. This guy is crazy.
Oh, dear.
He was spec ops, and he would run single man missions that typically took 6 or more in a squad. Like he's a bad dude. He's awesome, but terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
He had strength for sure. He has capabilities for sure. When he's gentle, it's because he's choosing to be. It didn't take away from his strength, but he's still choosing to put those things on hold. A strong man can be gracious because he's choosing not to be strong. Jesus on the cross could have called down angels, and he didn't come off the cross. So strength is not at odds with grace. They hold hands. Kind of like, like a Ferrari can still go interstate speeds, but it can also go a lot faster.
Yeah.
Your Momobile can't. So just, having a larger throttle and being able to tamp it down takes more control, I think, than whenever okay.
I don't know where the fireworks came from.
I have no idea either.
I've never seen that happen before.
I don't know.
It's
there
your
it
thumbs
is.
up.
My thumbs up.
That's so
it.
cool. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I know. Sorry to me.
I don't know if that's going to be there on the final cut.
It's going to be there. I'm sorry. What I'm saying is if you can throttle a larger amount of strength to a smaller amount, that takes self-control. If you don't have that, then you're not actually being self-controlled. To say that a strong man has to kill off his strength is not the word here. It means you're in complete control of how much strength you have, even though you're not using it all.
Gotcha.
So is there a time, back to your question, basically when you're going to appear more feminine versus masculine? Yes. I think David was like the most fearful king to go against in battle. And yet he was also like a pretty good poet. Like, writing with a feather pen doesn't exactly exude like I could kill you, but he could. And that's where he had a beautiful line that he could walk on both paths very well. Jesus could flip tables, but also tell parables with children on his lap. Mm-hmm. And both were a picture of his strength, even though one may have appeared more feminine. Sure, like having a kid sitting on your lap isn't exactly the picture of man, but it is.
Yeah.
Because he could also do the other thing. And if you can't do that, and all you can do is the gracious side, you're not actually masculine, and you're not actually manly. And I think that matters. You should be capable, but also capable of self-control.
Gotcha. It reminds me, I always think of people's hands whenever I think of this illustration, or this topic. Like, think of a guy who's got rough, strong hands. Like, he works outside all days. It's like the whole hand is calloused, and like he could probably break a log with his bare hands if he wanted to. But when he holds his daughter's hand, he holds it gently.
Yeah.
And to her, that hand is comforting, and it's a safe place for her, because she knows that hand is strong, but it's never going to hurt her.
Yes.
But if you come and attack his house, that hand is a very dangerous thing for you.
Absolutely right. You can act with grace while still maintaining your strength.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's what a man should do. I don't think a woman needs to be all this strong. They have a different set of things, and this isn't the scope for today, but when they're gracious, they're also under control. And I think all of us should be able to be both sides. Mm-hmm. When JL used the tent spike, she was on the masculine side for sure. But she was still gracious in her presentation. How do you think she got him to take a nap in her tent?
Yeah.
She was still gracious, even though it presented with, in the end, with masculinity. I think that's the thing, is you want to be mature and feminine if you're a girl. You want to be mature and masculine if you're a guy. But where does maturity come from? At the end of the day, it comes from the Holy Spirit and from his ability to control your life. And when you're submitted to him, strength under control, then you are going to do amazing things. And that's what, I think there was another question that we talked about. What's something that I can do to be more manly?
Yeah.
That. Let God direct your life. I think part B is I've used several biblical examples. Go learn them. Go study them. Look for them in terms of masculinity. Look for the stories of a man being like a man. Go read some of those judges' stories, and you'll figure out what mankind is capable of. And you also realize that you need to be capable of that too, because the world's not any worse than it, or it's not any different. It's not any better, for sure.
Now, another question. There's a lot of male stereotypes, right? Like, think of a guy who comes off the battlefield, then walks to his backyard, chops down a tree with his hands and an axe, and then, like, a bear attacks him while he's chopping down the tree, kills the bear with his bare hands, brings it to his wife after skinning it so she can cook it for dinner, finishes chopping up the firewood, builds a roaring fire, and then reads all night so that he can, like, be a poet as well, right? There's, like, these masculine stereotypes. Are those helpful for us, or are those harmful?
Honestly, I think it depends on who you are. Because if you live out in the country and you need to go fight bears and chop wood, then I think that can be a great picture. I think every man should be capable. There's a term called savoir-faire. It's a French term that just means basically you're capable of anything. So in this situation, I can present a certain way. In a different conversation, I can present a different way. I may be able to go make a roaring fire, but I can also sew a button onto something. I think you should be capable. And I think all men should be capable. And if you're not aiming for capability, then you're not very helpful, honestly. And I don't mean that as an insult, just as an encouragement. I think you need to be able to do multiple things. Look at Paul. Obviously, he was a speaker. Obviously, he was a linguist. Obviously, he was a student. Obviously, he was a writer. Obviously, he was a poet. Obviously, he was a reader. He knew the works of Homer, the Iliad, the Odyssey. Yeah. He knew all kinds of stuff. Obviously, he had the Old Testament memorized, which is kind of sick if you ask me. And then he also was a tent maker.
Yeah.
And also got stoned and then came back to life and walked 2 days straight after
tough
that.
Guy.
So I think you should be capable of all kinds of things.
Okay.
And again, strength under control. I know that I'm in control of me, and I know that I can go learn that if I put my mind to it. But if I'm more feminine, I'm just going to kind of stay in my lane. I'm just going to kind of, be a little less assertive. I'm not going to try to put my nose where it doesn't belong.
Let other people decide for you what
yes,
you should
be. Yes. And that's not what God calls you to do. Men are leaders, period.
Gotcha.
That's not a debatable topic. Men are leaders. Men should be leaders. Brother Bernard brought this up last week. It's an indicative. That means it's a fact. Men are leaders. Now, how you lead is up to you. Are you going to be a little girly man, or are you going to be a manly man? Are you going to be a spirit-filled man or a carnal man? But you are the leader, no matter how you lead. So yeah, be capable. Lead well.
So take the stereotypes and apply them where practical. Understand that not all of them are going to apply. Because some of them are pretty wild, not going to lie. So, I mean, who's the Goggins guy?
David Goggins.
Goggins.
I think the issue is with people like him or Andrew Tate or some of these other influencers is a lot of this is bred out of insecurity. And so just because you can run all day long doesn't mean that you should. Like, why? Why? Are you trying to prove something? And to whom? And why are you capable of doing the things that you do?
Okay. So last two little questions. You mentioned already briefly, like, what can I do today to be more masculine? You mentioned study the manly characters. You talked about the judges, David, Jesus, Moses, Paul, Joshua. I'm just going to keep repeating what you say.
No, you're good.
Are there any other steps that, like, I should be taking right now to become more masculine?
Like I said, masculinity, in my definition, equals strength, and that means mentally, physically, and spiritually. I think that's going to cover your spiritual bases, and it's going to give you some of your mental. It's not going to touch the physical. I do think that every man should be in shape. Here's why. If I'm called to lead my family and my house is burning down, but I can't pick them up and walk them out of the house because they're passed out with smoke, I'm not leading anyone. I'm not helping anyone.
Yeah.
They're my responsibility. If I can't even walk up the steps without getting out of breath, that's on me. And some people are going to say, and I told you you're getting canceled. Some people say that obesity is not your fault. Yes, it is. And I mean that with as much love as I can say. And it doesn't mean that you're necessarily bad for it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it's now you know, and you know better. So go and do the work that's required. And when you do that, then now there's reward for that because you're strong in your body. The Bible says about women, you know what? Here's my favorite thing. To women, in Proverbs 31, it says that she strengthens her arms. So if women are supposed to work out, according to the Proverbs 31 woman, which, by the way, I've never heard that in a sermon. I'm just telling you, and it's there. If women are supposed to do that and get stronger, why would men not do that?
Right.
If they're the leader. Lead the example. Okay, well, practically speaking, get in shape. And by the way, I do think that for most men is the first step of this process. Get in shape. Obviously, I already said get in the Word, and look at it through the lens of biblical masculinity. What does the Bible say about being a man, about being a father, and being a husband? You need to know those three, and you need to know them in and out. They need to be your working vocabulary. When I talk about my role at home with Skylar, I'm quoting verses all the time because it's not me and my goals. It's what God says and his goals for me. And then mentally, I think just get smart. Like, honestly, go learn stuff. Have savoir-faire. That means be capable in other situations. Know things. Be able to have conversations with people. If you can't walk into a room and find somebody to talk to, then you've not learned enough. It's a skill to build. So go build it and figure out how to do that. Figure out how to have conversations with people on different topics. So I think those are the practical steps. And okay, even better, a better practical step for you is think, what do I have to do in order to be strong physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually? Okay, what is my goal here? Okay, and what are the steps to get there? Go walk the steps. That's it. That's the practical advice that I have. Yeah.
And by the way, if you're interested in getting fit, he does have a company that will help you with that. It's called CS Coaching. Go check it out. He has a page on Instagram. You can DM him on there. Would it be better on there or your personal page?
My personal page, which I recently changed the name to Pastor Swole because I'm a nerd. But yeah, so Pastor Swole DM me, code Bubby. And,
code Bubby. Yeah, use the code word Bubby.
I'll send you whatever you need to get started for free. So
awesome. Yeah. Cool. All right, last question. Who is one man that you find yourself wanting to mimic? And Paul. I've asked other people. Oh, okay, that was fast.
Sorry, Paul. I've been thinking about this all day, Paul. Because, number one, for me personally, because we have the same personality type. And like we're both Ian. Yeah, we're Ian.
ENTJ.
That's very offensive.
I'm so sorry.
I'm just kidding. If you're an ESTJ, chill. I'm an ENTJ, and it seems Paul was too, as much as we can tell from Scripture. And so the way that he thinks through things is the same processing that I typically have. And because of that, I can relate to him in a lot of ways. And I see that he was strong, he was influential, and he was so, so spiritual. And because of that, that's what I want to be. And so I think for Paul, he has so much good advice to give to people, and he can walk the good path and the hard path, and he can walk them both with faithfulness. And at the end of the day, his advice to Timothy, I think, is my most helpful thing, and it's been on repeat in my mind. Be a strong soldier. Be a good soldier. And if my job is to war against, not flesh and blood, but against the forces of evil, then I have to be strong as a good soldier, and that can only come through God's power. And a great example of that is Paul.
I like that one. All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Join us next time for more discussions about how to see life from God's perspective on Seeking Wisdom. Thank you, Bub, for being here. Appreciate your insights and your help. Remember, guys, act like men, be strong.